Hello, and thank you to everyone who's joining us for today's webinar. We are just a few minutes before the session begins, so we will go ahead and get started in just a few minutes. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you to everybody who is joining us for the webinar. I can see we have quite a few people entering the webinar space now. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give it just about 3 or 4 more minutes to allow more attendees to join us, and then we'll get started. If you're just signing into the webinar, welcome. We're so happy that you're here to join us. If you're having any problems, please do use the chat feature to message us. We're going to for more attendees to sign in and kick off the presentation. I see we have quite a few people joining us still, so thank you so much. It is 1 o'clock, so we're going to kick off today's presentation. We do have quite a bit of content we want to cover. Again, thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Better Together, Integrating Collections Management and Digital Preservation Software. Today's session is being recorded. This is a partner webinar hosted by Preservica, Rediscovery Software, and Orange County Regional History Center. In our discussion today, we will showcase how the needs of one customer, Orange County Regional History Center, help to drive innovation and build partnership between two software providers, Preservica and Rediscovery software. The API integration supports Orange County with their critical digital collections objectives, including accessibility, digital preservation, and security. And this is now available for all customers who are using both Preservica and Rediscovery software products. Sean, we can move to the next slide. Thank you. My name is Katie Gambone, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I am so pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Bill Martin, one of Preservica's senior account executives, Monica Nabors, who is the Director of Conversion Services at Rediscovery Software, and Aaron Paul, Digital Archivist for the Orange County Regional History Center. Today's webinar is scheduled to last an hour. So we're going to start with introductions from Bill and Monica, who will give a quick overview of Preservica and Rediscovery software. We'll then talk briefly about the differences between collections management software and digital preservation software. Monica will provide a demo on what the integration looks like, and then we'll hear from Aaron, who will give an overview of the Orange County Regional History Center's collections and talk about why they chose two software systems to support the needs of their digital collections. Aaron will also give a demo of how the API integration works for Orange County and some customizations that have allowed them to improve their workflow. So if you have any questions during today's webinar, please use the chat feature to enter them there. We'll be covering all questions at the end of today's session. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Bill, to give you a quick introduction to Preservica. Take it away, Bill.
Thank you, Katie. As we are fully aware, we live in a world increasingly dominated by digital content. And this brings a number of challenges. Digital content can be fragile. It faces the risks of loss and corruption, but also the risk of not being readable or usable in the future because of technology or file format obsolescence. Preservica's mission is to ensure that the world's digital legacy is securely preserved and available for future generations. We say our technology future-proofs data, keeping it accessible and usable in contemporary formats 10, 20, 30 years from now. Preservica has been working in the digital preservation business for over a decade, starting with a project with the UK National Archives. Today, we have offices in Boston in the United States and in Oxford in the UK. We're helping hundreds of organizations protect millions of digital assets. Next slide, Sean. So this slide demonstrates the core functions of digital preservation. Some of the feature functions might be important to some, maybe new to others. I'd like to highlight actually the first point here in what we call active file format preservation. Preservica protects and enables access to thousands of file types, even legacy formats that many systems no longer have access to. It can also be we can also actively create copies of an original format in the current format of choice, ideal for wider access internally or externally. Next slide. I wanted to highlight this slide because this describes our accelerated success. Preservica can work with our customers to accelerate their success. Here are just a few ways we can support projects and extend the capability of our customers. Accelerated success is geared to make you, the customer, successful in your digital preservation project. Next slide, please. This slide highlights some of our customers. And in terms of our customer base, we are the preservation system of choice for 26 state archives in the United States. And internationally, we support 17 local authorities, including national archives as well. Next slide. But we do support much more than government archives. We also support academic institutions, museums, corporate foundations, and business archives, and national and pan-national organizations as well. Right now, we are supporting over 2,500 organizations worldwide, and many of these customers are using our free technology called Starter. In total, we are preserving more than 350 million assets and growing, and thousands of file formats. The number of file formats we preserve continue to grow as new technologies and formats emerge. Next slide, please. So for those of you on today's presentation who are unfamiliar with Preservica, we encourage you to practice with Preservica on your own. We invite you to visit starter.preservica.com and sign up for Preservica Starter. When you sign up, you'll also have access to Preservica's Community Hub, where you'll be able to interact with other customers, have questions answered, and access training videos. And it's free. So right now, I'll turn over to Monica, and she'll tell us more about Rediscovery software and the Proficio platform. Monica?
Thanks, Bill. Rediscovery Software is the leading independent provider of museum collections management systems in the US. Our goal is to simplify daily collections management tasks, whether it is data entry, searching, reporting, managing the movements of your collections. Our application also provides you with a quick access to all the information about your collections. Our Proficio and Proficio Elements applications can adapt to your institution's workflows and also help you manage your physical and digital assets. We make it possible to manage all types of collections, from historical, art, natural history, and archaeology objects to your archives and library collections, all under one system. Next slide, please. So Rediscovery Software is based in Charlottesville, Virginia. It was founded over 30 years ago by David Edwards when he began developing software to manage archaeological collections with input from the archaeologists at Thomas Jefferson's Monticello and Poplar Forest. It quickly became useful to other large archaeology sites in Virginia, including Jamestown Rediscovery, Colonial Williamsburg, and Mount Vernon. From those beginnings, they've quickly recognized a need in the museum world for a system that went beyond managing these archaeology collections. The resulting system has continued to evolve to meet the needs of our clients. We are a team of museum and archives professionals and software engineers. We enjoy helping our clients reach their collections management goals and always welcome suggestions for new features to incorporate into our system to further enhance our clients' experience. Next slide, please. Here are some of our clients, just a small portion. We have over 300 across the United States and Canada, and we are making inroads into other areas, including Australia. So some of these include small and large museums, universities, corporate archives, government agencies on the federal, state, and local levels, and many tribal communities and private collections, and many more. Next slide, please. We offer a feature-rich application. You can manage multiple types of collections with modules for objects, which includes history objects, artwork, and natural history, a module for your archives and library collections, and an archaeology module to manage archaeological site collections. You can track both incoming and outgoing loans, manage your exhibits, both physical and virtual, keep track of the conservation needs of your physical collection in our conservation module, facilitate researcher requests, complete inventories of your collection, prepare documentation for all of these tasks, and so much more. You can share your collections with the public via our Proficio for the web. Digital files related to all of your collections can be easily attached to your records. These include images for a visual reference to your collections, reports on conditions and appraisals, even acquisition documentation like deed of gifts and things like that can be generated and then attached to your records in the program. You can even attach video and audio files. Our system can be installed locally or join more of our clients who are being hosted in our Proficio cloud. Next slide, please. We also offer conversion services from many application types. And in addition to our help desk, we have live training webinars monthly and an extensive training library available anytime. For more information about Proficio or Proficio Elements and what it can do for your collections management, please visit our website at rediscoverysoftware.com to request a demo. Back to you, Katie.
Thanks. Sean, you can stay here on this slide for us. So thanks, Monica and Bill, for that overview. That was really helpful. So now that we've heard about Preservica and Rediscovery software, we wanted to provide today's attendees with a comparison of the value that collections management software and a digital preservation system can offer. So Monica, can you start us off by talking a little bit about the purpose of collections management software?
Sure. So collections management software is really designed to support the needs of multiple departments who oversee the care of your organization's collections on a daily basis. And it ensures that all the data and files related to your collections are safely stored and easily related to the object they are associated with. For example, in the diagram on the screen, we can see that just one artwork can have multiple files associated with it. The conservation staff may have conservation reports about that object and digital surrogates of the object at multiple stages throughout the conservation process. The curatorial department may have digital surrogates, metadata, research notes, catalog descriptions, exhibition information, and more that they oversee. Meanwhile, you may have a finance department who may keep records related to the acquisition or insurance of the collections. And even a marketing department may have high quality images of your collection for publication purposes. So collections management software makes all of this information easily available to each department and provides a full picture of the care of an object. Collections management software can also allow you to make relationships between objects and other objects in the collection. So for example, in Proficio, you can arrange your archives into 4 levels: a collection, series, file, and item. So in this way, the collections management software provides a full picture of an individual item and your collections as a whole for the internal staff. Collections management software can also support organizations that want to share some of this information with the public. So the CMS allows you to publish digital images and related metadata from your collections to a public-facing website. This is incredibly beneficial for organizations that want to connect to new audiences and provide access to collections outside of normal working hours. In summary, a CMS can really support an organization with connecting with both internal and external audiences. It is really intended for daily use in managing your collection activities.
Thanks. So for a comparison with the purpose of digital preservation software, let's turn it over to Bill. And
Thanks, Katie.
Sean, if you can advance the slide, thank you.
All right. So digital preservation software can also support some of the capabilities of collection management software. For example, digital preservation software does allow you to catalog metadata, store lots of different file types, and share that information with the public if you choose. However, digital preservation software, and in particular Preservica, is really focused on long-term integrity of your digital content. Think of Preservica as a backup to all the content that you store in your collections management software. If your CMS goes down or important information is accidentally deleted in your CMS, your digital preservation system is there as a trusted record for that information. Preservation software conducts important integrity checks ensures multiple copies are stored in a secure environment, and more. A term, again, we call active digital preservation. Also, digital preservation software ensures that every single file type that you're using in your CMS is readable now and in the future. For example, depending on the age of your collections, if some of you may have some WordPerfect files, this format is no longer supported, but those files can be hosted in Preservica. They would automatically be converted to a readable format for your staff, so your staff can continue to read and use that content. Back to you, Katie.
Thanks. Yep. So from here, now that we've heard about the difference between the two systems, we're going to talk about how they work together, which is really the focus of our presentation today. So the integration between Preservica and Rediscovery, again, it was really driven by a request from our mutual client, Orange County Regional History Center. We're going to play a short demo recorded by Monica to show you what the Preservica and Proficio integration looks like in practice. And again, this integration can be used by any customer with both a Preservica and Proficio license. So Sean, if you can help us by playing the recording.
For the integration between Preservica and Proficio, you must have an asset ingested into Preservica and a record created in Proficio that will be linked to that asset. For example, we have a record here with a letter that we want to link to the Preservica asset here. To do that, we need to add a couple of things to the Preservica side. We need to add an identifier that will link both records together. So I'm going to click Edit and click Add Identifier. And here we use a label called Proficio ID. This can be anything you like. And we need to include the value from Proficio for the unique identifier in Proficio. For an archival record, that's the archive number. And you can see that right above here on the record pane. You can simply highlight it and copy that. And then on the Preservica record, for this example, I'm going to include the directory name. This is an optional feature. And then the identifier from that directory. Once I have that, I also need a place for the information from Proficio. We will use the Dublin core schema. You can add that template by choosing select a template at the bottom and select DC metadata template and click Add. Once that schema is there, this is where the information from Proficio will be populated. We can map any field from the Proficio record, including supplementals, into the Dublin core schema. We can even stack multiple fields into individual fields of the Dublin core schema. And this is all custom configured based on what you would like to import into your Preservica record. So once you have that template, save that information. And then on the Proficio record, on the Images tab for your Proficio record, click Export to DAM. It asks if you're sure, just click Yes, and then it'll notify you when it's complete. Click OK. On the Preservica record, I'm going to refresh my browser so we can see the information that was imported from Proficio. And you can see in the Dublin core schema section, we have information that was imported from the Proficio record. Likewise, if you're on the Proficio record, you can see the metadata that is in the Preservica record. On the Images tab, just click View DAM Metadata. This will show you the asset that's in Preservica along with any metadata that is on the Preservica record itself. if you have Proficio records that have multiple assets that are in Preservica, for example, this record, we have 2 images, which we also have available in our collections in Preservica. Here's one of those. On the Proficio record, click View DAM Metadata, and you will see both records listed that are in the Preservica side. You can select either one to see the information that's in the Preservica asset. And similarly, when you export information from a Proficio record that has multiple items linked to it in Preservica, that exported information will update all assets in Preservica that are linked to the same Proficio record. So just one export updates them all in the Preservica if they have the same ID that matches the one in Proficio. We can also make the same configurations available in any of our directory styles. So for example, if you have objects in art or history style directories, we can create mappings to digital assets that you have that go with these objects. So for example, here's an art item. We have an asset that is linked in Preservica, and you can view that information from Preservica the same way we did in the archives records. And here is that information from that asset in Preservica. And it has the same export function as well. In addition, you can do batch updates of data from Proficio into Preservica. So if you have many records where you have assets in Preservica, you can highlight multiple records in the list pane or create a tag set or any other grouping of your records. And on the record menu, you can export them to DAM all at once, so you don't have to do them one at a time. Here you get a choice between doing the current record or doing all 4 visible, which is what I have highlighted in my list pane. And then you just click OK to send them all up. And as long as they have a matching ID in the Preservica system, they will update that information from their specific records. And that is our integration between Proficio and Preservica.
Okay, great. So now we're going to hear from Aaron Paul at the Orange County Regional History Center. Aaron's going to talk a bit about the digital collections he oversees and also why Orange County chose Preservica and Proficio. Aaron will also walk us through an example of how this integration works at his organization, which has additional customizations beyond what Monica just demoed for us. So Aaron recorded his presentation ahead of today's session, so we're going to go ahead and play that now. Sean, if you're able to, perfect, thank you.
Hello. The Orange County Regional History Center, located in downtown Orlando, was founded in 1971 and is the largest historical organization in Central Florida. Without including the digital collection, the History Center is home to over 35,000 artifacts, photographs, oral histories, and archival materials, documenting the heritage of Central Florida. The collection spans 7 counties and thousands of years of history. The institution is a collaboration between the Historical Society of Central Florida and the Orange County government, which has a number of advantages, but it can also lead to some complications when dealing with digital collections. I joined the Orange County Regional History Center in 2019 as the One Orlando Digital Archivist and transitioned into a newly created Digital Archivist role earlier this year as the collection continued to expand. I was initially hired to work on the digital material collected surrounding the 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting and to expand the digital collection by acquiring new donations, starting with content surrounding Pulse and then expanding to collecting donations related to all of Central Florida's history. The digital collection started in 2016, but was still very small when I took over in 2019, and only included a few thousand born digital photos, all related to the Pulse nightclub shooting, and mostly related to the memorials following the event. Because the collection was so new and small, the History Center did not yet have any guidelines specific to born digital items, and they were essentially treated the same as the reference photos of physical objects in our collection. The collection was stored primarily on Orange County's internal server and on an external hard drive that got updated a few times a year. Part of my initial work included building out the digital infrastructure for the collection and coming up with a strategy to protect our collection according to industry standards, which helped lead me to Preservica and upgrading our digital infrastructure. In addition to the born digital content, I also began the long overdue task of digitizing the History Center's largely inaccessible legacy media collection. The legacy media collection includes over 4 million feet of 16 and 8mm film and thousands of tapes on various media formats, including 1/4-inch audio reels, 3/4-inch U-matic, various beta formats, and VHS, just to name a few of the more common formats in our collection. The collection includes over 40 different formats, and we can now digitize around 20 of those, with plans to expand that number in the near future. When I joined the History Center, the entire digital collection was under 1/2 terabyte in size, and has since grown to over 50 terabytes, with about a couple terabytes being added every week. The digital collection includes hundreds of thousands of digital photos, videos, oral histories, documents, and even some podcasts. Due to the History Center's changing needs and rapid increase in audio and video content, we decided to transition away from Past Perfect, which was our previous collection management system. We wanted to be able to make our audio and video content publicly accessible and wanted to move to a cloud-based platform following internal accessibility challenges during the pandemic. After looking at a number of potential platforms, we decided to transition to a combination of Proficio and Preservica to fit our specific needs. Proficio has allowed us to do more with our collection, and a cloud-based platform allows us to work in the system remotely. We hope to start having volunteers catalog items remotely, along with allowing them more freedom to expand the hours that they can help our institution, and just providing more flexibility. Preservica solved a big gap in our digital preservation infrastructure. Part of the collaboration between the Historical Society and Orange County government means that all of our IT infrastructure goes through the county. This has some huge benefits, like strong IT support, plenty of available storage space, and increased digital security. But at the same time, it means that we are not able to use most open source software, and that people outside of the institution have administrative access over our digital collections, which in a worst case scenario means that our collections could be deleted without us even knowing it happened, or being able to reverse it. Preservica allowed us to have a copy of our digital collections in a location that we could secure, while also providing great preservation and access capabilities. Preservica will allow us to make our film, video, and audio files directly accessible to the public, instead of needing to have patrons come into the History Center to access that media, which is has been a big push in our institution, and something that we've really wanted to do for quite a while. Again, providing greater accessibility to our audience. One of the big advantages of using Proficio and Preservica is that they were both very receptive and excited about the idea of an integration between their platforms, even though it didn't exist when we started using them. We currently use Proficio as our public access portal for our collections, including all of our physical items, archives, digital photos, and we'll be making our video and audio collection accessible soon. Our digital content will remain hosted in Preservica, but will be linked to the catalog record in Proficio so that anyone looking at our collection should have a seamless experience between the two systems, and it really should feel like they're in the same system the entire time. Another advantage of the integration is that we can store a copy of the metadata we enter into Proficio in Preservica, creating a backup of not only our digital artifacts, but of our entire record. We don't think anything will happen to those records in Proficio, but there are a lot more staff members, volunteers, and interns that have access to Proficio and could accidentally delete records. As I mentioned, we would like to have volunteers catalog items remotely, which also increases our risk of potential deletions or accidents happening. In Preservica, we only have 3 staff members with access to the collection, and if anything were to happen in Preservica, it still takes 6 months and 2 people to permanently delete content, further safeguarding our collections. Having that redundancy greatly increases the security of our collections. Recently, we applied for a grant to digitize part of our media collection, and one of the big selling points in that proposal, and something that the reviewers specifically called out in their critique, was how strong our digital preservation, long-term storage plan, and public accessibility were with the combination of Proficio and Preservica. So now I want to take a quick look at how the integration actually works and how our institution is using it. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to use a Born Digital photograph for its smaller file size that kind of fits better with this type of presentation. So this is a digital photo that's been fully cataloged in Proficio. And I also want to point out that Proficio has a 4-level archival system. So you can catalog items at the collection, series, file unit, and item level, which is a huge advantage and something we use for different collections in our collection. But for this photo, it's only cataloged at the item level. So here's the main record and a low resolution watermarked version of the asset itself. And this is the public facing side of that record through Proficio, along with that digital photo. So once the item is fully cataloged, then we add it to Preservica. And I already uploaded the photo through the put system. So this is that same photo. We're going to go down to the item level, click edit down at the bottom of the page, add identifier. And this first field is the identifier type. So that is going to be, in our case, Proficio ID for every record in our collection. That field essentially tells Preservica where the data is going to come from. In this case, again, it's Proficio. So that's where the connection is. The second field is the value, and that's going to be unique to each individual asset in the collection. So for this, we chose to use the object ID number because we know it's going to be unique to each asset in our collection. It's something we already use to identify items. So you'll notice that at the beginning of this, I have a slash, a dash, and a hashtag. So those symbols are used to accommodate Proficio's 4-level catalog system. So if I were using something that was in cataloged with that 4-level system, I would enter the collection number / series number dash file unit number hashtag item number. Since it's just cataloged at the item level, that is essentially all of those fields are left blank. So I'll just enter this. And then down at the bottom of the page, I'm going to select the DC metadata template and hit save. So when I do that, you can see that the identifier has been added, but the metadata still isn't there. So then we go back to Proficio, and in the Images tab, this is something that's been open to us. I don't think it's available if you don't have this integration or haven't specifically asked for it, but there are buttons that have been added, especially the export to DAM. So if I click that, it prompts me if I want to transfer, and I click yes. Metadata has been transferred over. And if I go back to Preservica, refresh the page, the metadata from that photo has now been transferred over. So that transfer happens pretty much immediately, which is great. You can kind of check in. If you are doing it at the item level, you can check in and make sure it happened and everything went well, which again is really helpful. So this is the method that we initially started working with, and it works well for individual items and kind of smaller files. But our main use for this integration was dealing with kind of our larger media files, larger series of files, and kind of with our collection in general. And for that context, the put system and this method are a bit slow and a bit difficult to work with. So we talked to Preservica and Proficio, and they offered an alternative called the Open Preservation Exchange, or OPEX format. And so far, that has been really useful and really helpful in streamlining the process and kind of speeding up the transfer process. So that OPEX format essentially takes the place of the put system, and it involves a little bit more work at the beginning of the process, but overall it speeds it up and creates kind of better workflow. So I'm going to quickly go over that as well. So this process starts out, in our case, in CyberDuck, but you can also use Cloudberry or really whatever else you're using to ingest large files into the put holding area. So for this, Preservica provided a new bucket location, which is what you can see here. So within that bucket, we have a file titled OPEX. That file is going to stay in there permanently, and everything we're adding to it will go into that file. So within that, you have a file with a series of digits. That's essentially the title or the name of the job or the transfer. And so just like the put system, that has to be a unique number name for each individual job going into the future. So Preservica recommends using the date, the full date and timestamp, just so you don't accidentally reuse a number. Within that, we have our asset, which again, in this case, is a digital photo that happens to be a JPEG, titled with that object ID number. Along with that, we have another file titled the exact same, but it ends in a .opex file extension. And so that is right here. So that, or because we're not using the put system, any information we want to accompany the asset needs to be entered through HTML. and that is what this is. So it's really simple. It's really simplified. Basically, what I have entered in here is a fixity check, the title of the asset, identifier type and value, and then the shell for descriptive metadata. And I don't need to include the metadata fields or kind of the what would be in that metadata shell. So this is really simple to use, and kind of once you have the form in place, really the only things you're going to need to change are the value of the fixity check, the title, and the value of the identifier. Everything else can remain the same, which again really helps with the workflow and kind of processing larger files or series of files. So ordinarily, the OPEX format is set up to automatically start uploading as soon as the assets are added to the folder. So I would be able to show you I temporarily stopped that process, just so I could show you what it looks like. But if you go into the ingest section and under manage, I can reactivate that process. And then if I go into running, that process will have already started. So that the process is already starting to transfer in, and it's moving fairly quick right now, which is nice. But when this is done, it'll take it up to the point where the next step would be going into Proficio and exporting that metadata to DAM. And again, in Proficio, when you're working with multiple files at the same time, you can transfer more than one at once. I just used one because of the example I was using, but you can do it as a package. So this integration, the OPEX format is something that we just started testing out. So far, it's been a huge improvement and a huge help to kind of what we're doing and what we're working with. But we're continuing to explore ways to streamline the process, make it more user-friendly, and kind of make this as useful as possible on the back end for the people actually uploading the items. On the public-facing side, this is going to have huge advantages for us, where we're going to have our media out there publicly accessible and usable by the public, with all the metadata attached, kind of all the information that would go with the record that we want publicly accessible. So this will greatly enhance our public accessibility, and kind of has huge improvements to both our collection security and public access, which is great for us. And now I am going to turn it over for questions. So if anyone has any, feel free to start asking. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Aaron. That was fantastic. As Aaron mentioned, that concludes the content that we've prepared for today's presentation. So we'd like to open it up to attendees for question and answer. So if you do have a question, please enter it using the chat feature in your control panel. And we'll try to get through as many today as possible. So we'll keep our eye out. I am not seeing any right now, but again, you have a few minutes to enter those in. We'll stay on. We had hoped to take question and answer with our cameras on. Unfortunately, the GoToWebinar system wasn't allowing us to use our cameras today, but here are our pictures just in case you do want to ask any questions. So let me see. Sean, I don't know if you're able to see on your end any questions.
Yes, I do. Hold on just a second here. So the first one I have here is there a cost associated with setting up this Proficio Preservica integration if we already use both systems?
Bill or Monica, you want to take that?
Sure, Katie, I'll answer that. Currently, that is an option that you can go ahead and activate in our system. Just let us know, and it does not cost anything additional for the configuration for Proficio.
Thank you. The next one I see here is whom do we ask to get this integration?
So if you are already a Proficio client, you just give us a call. We'll send you information about what we need, because we'll need to know things like what fields you want and information about how you connect to your Preservica instance and things like that. And then we can set up that configuration. So definitely give the support team a call at Rediscovery and we can get you started.
Thanks, Monica. I think this might be another one for you, maybe Bill as well. What is needed to create this integration?
Essentially just some configuration in Proficio itself to make that option available to you on those images tab in the screen to be able to do that.
Thank you. I believe this one is for Aaron. Is the main access point for your collections via Proficio? And when do you use Preservica?
Yes, currently it's Proficio. We are still working on the kind of public facing side of Preservica, and we're kind of getting some of our own stuff in order for that part of it. But when it's done, it will essentially be kind of a combination of both, but it will look to anyone using it like it's just going off of the Proficio system.
Thank you, Aaron. A follow-up to that as well. We've got a couple people asking about what Orange County's public interface looks like. Is that something that you might be able to share a link in the chat, or we could follow up with in the follow-up from this webinar?
Yes, I can add it to the chat, but essentially if you go to our website and go to our collection, that is the Proficio interface. Grab that link though, and I'll add that in now.
Thank you, Aaron. While you do that, I have another one here. I already have Preservica. If I started using Proficio, would it be possible to export the metadata from Preservica into Proficio?
Currently, we don't have a process to go from Preservica into Proficio. It's the other direction right now, but it could be a future development that we do. There are some functions in Proficio for importing data. So if you got it out of Preservica in a certain format, a delimited or an XML file, we could import that, but it's not a direct connection. So you do have to have a file that you would import.
Thank you. I believe this one's also for Aaron. Are you leveraging the universal access for your collection, or is this integration mainly for preservation purposes?
We will be using universal access for kind of our larger media, videos, audio files, content like that, but we haven't made that part, or we haven't made that public yet.
Thank you, Aaron. Here's a question about the connection from Proficio to Preservica. Is this a one-way connection, or can you update metadata in Preservica, which will then export back to Proficio?
It's a one way. You can view data from Preservica while you're in Proficio, but you can't pull it down directly from Preservica into Proficio. So we send data up to Preservica to fill in the Dublin core schema section, and that's the part that actually updates data in Preservica.
Thank you, Monica. I have another one here. Do you need to have an image attached to export the metadata to Preservica, or can you just export the catalog record without the image thumbnail?
Correct. You do not need an actual image or any other media file attached to your Proficio record to export the metadata. You can go ahead and just export the metadata directly to Preservica.
Thank you, Monica. We have another person who's using two-factor authentication for Preservica, and they're wondering, can Proficio integrate with that as well?
We've been exploring that. That's a difficult situation because this is a behind-the-scenes connection, so there's no option to enter a second type of authentication. So at this time, it looks to me like we cannot do it with a two-factor authentication yet.
Thank you, Monica. Aaron, here's another one for you. I'm an archivist at a small nonprofit LGBTQ community archives, and we are in the process of setting up Preservica as our DAM system after a large digitization project. Would adding and integrating with Proficio be sustainable for a smaller community organization?
It would kind of depend on how much content you have in Preservica. If you're, I think this is available through their starter tier as well. I'm not sure, but if you're on that starter tier, definitely, especially if you're going to use Proficio as your collection management system. But as you kind of increase your storage size and storage needs, it does get more expensive. For Preservica storage.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm sorry, Katie,
Sean,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we're nearing the end of the presentation today. Maybe take one more question if there is one, and then we'll need to start wrapping up.
Sure thing. Okay, here's one about metadata. Is the Dublin core schema the only available schema for Proficio Preservica integration?
Yes, we only use the Dublin core schema section in Preservica to export our data into.
Thank you. We had just a couple more questions, but we'll be sure to answer those in the follow-up. So if you didn't get your question answered, we'll make sure to get that to you.
Thank you. Actually, Sean, if you're able to move forward to our one of our last slides that has our contact information on it. I want to just quickly thank today's speakers and all of our attendees for joining us. We really hope that you found this session helpful. Again, we're going to be mailing a recording of the webinar after today's session, and as Sean said, we'll be sure to answer any remaining questions that we weren't able to cover off during the session. We'd also invite you to learn more about Preservica Rediscovery software in Orange County Regional History Center at the websites provided here on this slide, and Bill, Monica, and Aaron's direct contact information is also available. So again, if you didn't get a chance to ask your question, please do feel free to reach out to us and we'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible. And then just finally, Sean, if we can go to the last slide, I'd like to just mention that Preservica will be launching a social media campaign this October in honor of Archives Month. So the campaign hashtag What to Preserve is a really fun way we hope to raise awareness about the important collections that each of your organizations preserves. So please keep an eye out on social media, and we hope that you'll join us. Thank you again for joining us today, and that concludes our webinar.